There are lies so old most Americans don't even recognize them as lies anymore. They sound like common sense. They feel like things you've always known. But behind each one is a traceable moment, a decision, a point where someone realized it was more profitable for you to buy your food than to grow it. And once you see the pattern across all 13, you can't unsee it. These are the food lies that quietly made an entire country forget how to feed itself. Lie number 13. Growing food takes too much land, too much time, and too much work to be practical for a regular household. This is usually the first thing people say when someone mentions backyard food production. It's also the most conveniently repeated myth in a country where the lawn care industry alone generates over $100 billion a year. The truth is, a single moringa tree, one of the most nutrient-dense plants on the planet, can be grown in a large container and produce harvestable leaves within 60 days of planting. Cassava, the primary calorie source for over 800 million people worldwide, grows in marginal soil with almost no irrigation. The lie was never that food production is complex. The lie is that complexity was made the default when simplicity was always available. Lie number 12. If it's growing wild in your yard, it's a weed and it needs to go. Americans spend billions every year on herbicides to destroy plants their great-grandparents would have harvested for dinner. Lamb's quarters, one of the most common so-called weeds in North America, contains more iron and protein than spinach. Purslane, pulled from sidewalk cracks and thrown away by the handful, has the highest omega-3 content of any leafy green ever tested. Comfrey, once called knitbone, and used for centuries across Europe and early America, was quietly reclassified and pushed out of common use right around the time the supplement industry found better revenue in selling isolated nutrients. The definition of weed didn't come from botany, it came from marketing. Lie number 11. You need rich, perfectly amended soil to grow anything worth eating. This lie sells fertilizer. It sells soil amendments. It sells dependency on products you would never need if you were growing the right plants. Jerusalem artichoke, a native North American tuber that sustained indigenous populations for centuries, thrives in poor, rocky ground most gardeners would give up on. Sea buckthorn, loaded with vitamin C, omega-7 fatty acids, and antioxidants, grows in sandy, depleted soils where almost nothing else survives. These are not rare exceptions. They are the rule that got quietly rewritten once the soil amendment industry realized poor soil was more profitable than resilient crops. Lie number 10. Superfoods only grow in tropical climates, so you'll always have to import them. This narrative keeps Americans buying high markup products shipped from thousands of miles away, while viable alternatives grow in their own hardiness zones. Sea buckthorn survives temperatures well below -30 degrees Fahrenheit and produces berries with more vitamin C than oranges. Autumn olive, a nitrogen-fixing shrub that thrives across most of the continental United States, produces berries with up to 17 times more lycopene than tomatoes. Hardy kiwi grows as far north as Zone 4. The lie was never about what can grow here. It was about making sure you never tried. Lie number 9. If a plant isn't officially approved and regulated, it's probably not safe to eat. Comfrey was used across Europe and colonial America for centuries as both food and medicine. It was a staple of folk herbalism and early American homesteads. Then, in the early 2000s, the FDA issued warnings based on isolated alkaloid studies using concentrated extracts at doses no human being would ever consume through normal dietary use. The result was that a plant with centuries of documented traditional use was effectively removed from public trust within a single generation. Meanwhile, ultra-processed foods with ingredient lists longer than legal contracts remain on every shelf in America without a single warning label. The safety standard was never about protecting you. It was about controlling what you're allowed to trust. Lie number 8. Modern fruits and vegetables are the most nutritious they've ever been. University of Texas researchers published a landmark study in 2004 showing that 43 common garden crops had measurable declines in protein, calcium, phosphorus, iron, riboflavin, and vitamin C compared to the same crops measured in 1950. The cause is well documented. Modern commercial cultivars were bred for yield, shelf life, and cosmetic uniformity. Nutrition was never the selection priority. Meanwhile, moringa leaf, a plant most Americans have still never heard of, contains 7 times the vitamin C of oranges, 4 times the calcium of milk, and twice the protein of yogurt gram for gram. The grocery store didn't replace those older varieties with something better. It replaced them with something that looked better and sold faster. Lie number 7. The food pyramid was based on nutritional science. The original USDA food pyramid, introduced in 1992, placed grains at its foundation and recommended 6 to 11 servings per day. This was not the recommendation of the nutritional scientists who worked on the project. It was the result of direct lobbying by the grain and cereal industry, which pressured the USDA to restructure the graphic before public release. The scientists involved objected publicly. The pyramid was released anyway. For decades, Americans were told that the foundation of a healthy diet was the product most profitable for industrial agriculture. And the crops that offered superior nutrition per square foot of growing space, things like amaranth, quinoa, moringa, and perennial greens, were never mentioned once. Lie number 6. Perennial food plants aren't serious food sources. American agriculture is built almost entirely on annuals. Corn, wheat, soybeans, and rice dominate because they require replanting every season, which means annual purchases of seed, fertilizer, herbicide, and equipment. Perennials break that cycle completely. A single established fruit tree can produce for decades without replanting. Perennial vegetables like asparagus, sorrel, and walking onions come back year after year with minimal input. Sea buckthorn and autumn olive produce reliably for 20 years or more once established. The annual model wasn't chosen because it feeds people better. It was chosen because it generates repeat revenue. Perennials are bad for the business model. That's the only reason they were sidelined. Lie number 5. Your yard is meant for grass, not food. The American lawn is one of the most successful pieces of economic engineering in modern history. It originated as a status symbol among European aristocrats who were wealthy enough to waste productive land on ornamentation. It was adopted into post-war American suburbia as a social signal, and then enforced through homeowner association bylaws and municipal codes. Today, the United States has more total acreage devoted to lawn grass than to corn, wheat, and fruit orchards combined. Not 1 square foot of it produces a single calorie. The idea that your yard should be decorative instead of productive didn't just become a cultural norm. In many places, it became law. Lie number 4. Traditional and indigenous crops are outdated and primitive. Cassava feeds more than 800 million people across Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia. It grows through drought, in poor soil, in extreme heat, and with virtually no chemical input. Amaranth was so central to the Aztec Empire that Spanish colonizers banned its cultivation as a deliberate act of cultural control. Teff, the grain behind Ethiopian civilization for thousands of years, contains all 8 essential amino acids. These crops were not abandoned because they failed. They were replaced because colonial agriculture and later industrial agriculture had no profit model for crops that didn't require expensive inputs. The word primitive was applied to the foods that demanded the least dependency. That should tell you everything you need to know. Lie number 3. You can get everything you need from a daily multivitamin. The global supplement industry generates over $150 billion a year by selling isolated compounds extracted from the very plants it helped push out of the food supply. A single serving of moringa leaf contains bioavailable iron, calcium, potassium, and a full range of B vitamins in a form the human body recognizes and absorbs with high efficiency. A standard multivitamin delivers synthetic isolates with absorption rates that multiple peer-reviewed studies have shown to be significantly lower. The lie was never that supplements are completely useless. The lie was that they were necessary in the first place, when the plants that make them redundant were available the entire time. Lie number 2. The food supply chain will always be there when you need it. In the spring of 2020, American grocery shelves went empty for the first time in most living memory. The modern food supply operates on a just-in-time logistics model designed for maximum efficiency and minimum redundancy. Most grocery stores carry roughly 72 hours of inventory at any given moment. One disruption in trucking, one port closure, one regional weather event, and the system folds. This is not a resilient system. It is an optimized one, and optimization without redundancy is just fragility wrapped in good marketing. Every household that grows even a fraction of its own food is cushioned against a supply chain that was never designed to protect them. It was designed to extract from them. Lie number 1. You were never meant to feed yourself. This is the lie beneath all the others. It's the quiet assumption that food production is someone else's job, that it requires credentials, acreage, capital, and industrial equipment, that the correct role of an American household is to earn wages and exchange them for food produced by a system they don't control and can't see into. For most of this country's history, the opposite was true. Self-provisioning wasn't a lifestyle trend. It was the baseline. The average American household grew, preserved, and stored a significant portion of its own calories well into the 20th century. That knowledge didn't vanish on its own. It was systematically replaced by convenience narratives, suburban design codes, and economic structures that rewarded dependency and penalized autonomy. The most dangerous lie on this list has nothing to do with any single crop or any single nutrient. It's the belief that you were never supposed to do this in the first place. Because once you accept that, every other lie on this list sounds perfectly reasonable. There is a reason these plants still exist. There is a reason the knowledge hasn't completely disappeared, and there is a reason you stayed until the end of this video. The lies only hold power as long as nobody names them out loud. Now you know what they are. What you do with that is entirely yours to decide.